looks like we are live now in the Trace Labs AMA. It's myself, Belouve, and Levi here. We are waiting on Alethe Denis. No big deal. Just to be entirely transparent, I'm going to have to briefly step away. I will, during that period, I will let Levi and Belouve talk more about the Trace Labs mission and all things Trace Labs during that time frame. And then actually, Levi's in the chat, so Levi can see the stuff. Human Decoded's here as well, but not on the webinar. If Human Decoded wants on the webinar, you know where to find me. We'll take care of that. So with those introductions aside, I'm going to briefly step away for a moment and turn it over to Levi and Belouve.
Terrible idea, honestly. But hello.
Yeah, no, we'll start this off. Levi talked me into wearing a funny hat, at least for the start. So I'll turn on my camera. You can. Oh no, the host doesn't let me.
Oh,
probably a wise move to not let me turn on my
Honestly.
video.
Well, I guess nobody gets to see my funny hat.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a bit. But yes, welcome everyone to the Ask Me Anything. We have quite the accumulation of talent here. Hopefully, we have Alethe join us as well. She'll be quite talented. Oh, there she is. See, you just have to evoke her name and summon her.
You have to say it at least like 3 times.
Yep, summon her from the shadows, and there she is. So welcome, Alethe. We just mentioned your name and evoked you from the shadows into our webinar.
Hey there. I don't typically use Teams, I typically use Teams, so I don't know why my Zoom isn't working for video. But anyway, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I was sitting there waiting, and then I didn't notice it pop up and say, "Hey, get in here."
All right, that sounds great. So yeah, we were just doing some introductions. You're just kicking this off. So again, I'm Alex Minster, to go by the handle of Belouve. Yeah, I currently serve as the director of Trace Labs, so I'm very excited for the CTF and everybody that has just an outpouring of eagerness and interest into this. I'll let Levi and Alethe introduce themselves as well, but as I said before Alethe joined, we have a great accumulation of talent here.
I'm just a bunch of spiders in a trench coat. Hello.
That's true.
Alethe knows my secrets. I had to just come out with it.
Too many of them, actually.
Dun. Mostly about my Animal Crossing island.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of spiders there.
There are.
It's very scary. So, hello, my name is Alethe. I was a member of the Password Inspection Agency along with Joe. Together, our team won the initial remote version, virtual version of the DEF CON Trace Labs CTF and managed to finally snag a black badge for our team back in 2020.
I believe, Alethe, you've also snagged the new black badge as well, the MVO.
Yes. So with a bunch of friends that Levi and I know well, our team that usually goes by the Trash Pandas, we were able to snag MVO, and together we won a bronze and silver badge as well. And I've also contributed to some of the Trace Labs community stuff by helping to contribute to the contestants guide as well.
Yep, and our award-winning sock puppet evening that we've done.
I honestly share that with everyone. That would be so fun to do again.
Yeah, it would be great to do that again, get some updates. It was fantastic, and it continues to be a very, very valuable resource.
Yeah, I still use a lot of those tactics that we shared in that initial video, which I think we did back in 2020 as well, with some other really amazing alias account manufacturing folks. But yeah, I still use a lot of those same tactics today just because it's so tough to spin up an alias identity these days with all of the fraud prevention and other great things for security of accounts, but not so great when you're trying to create an alias type security features.
Yeah, and I think so, some of mine still survive the takeover and purge of robot accounts from the bird site.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
yes.
mine are still there. It's like, hooray. But then that does, still get to the point that for the building of sock puppets for the Trace Labs event, and that may preempt some questions, I'm not building them in order to, fool the Zuckerbergs and Elon Musks of the world. They are fully aware that, well, not fully aware. I don't care if they know that I have multiple accounts. I'm not evading them. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to make sure that for the purposes of the Trace Labs event, it's more for guarding against the mistakes or something that you go, oops, I accidentally liked this this item and I just look like I'm 32-year-old construction worker that has difficulty understanding how Facebook works and I just misclicked on something. It's much better than, the click tracking back to me that they look up and they go, oh, what does he do? He's involved with what group now? And
Mhm.
yeah, and not
Yeah.
wanting to have those, but it's like, as far as, I'm probably not fooling the authorities or any of the owners of these social media platforms.
Oh yeah.
That's not the point. For some others, you may want to evade. We're certainly not going to help you create sock puppets to hide from the government or evade three-letter agencies. So, but
Yeah.
it's always great to update the techniques and tricks.
Yeah, I
Mm.
couldn't agree more. I think we even stated that multiple times in the video when people were like, oh, but they can, associate your IP address if you're creating multiple accounts from, just your standard daily driver computer.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're not trying to create alias accounts for the purposes of doing anything illegal and anonymous. These are strictly for research. And I think one of the biggest fears of a researcher is unintentionally engaging with content from
Yeah.
either a potential target or someone in their circle or a potential adversary or someone in their circle. So the double tap on an Instagram photo that is, some potential attackers profile because you're trying to zoom in and you just forget how Instagram works. It's one of those things that an alias account is really, really great to have in those cases so that you
Yeah.
don't start showing up as a potential connection for those people, like you mentioned. So yeah,
I almost unintentionally burned one of mine from a few months of zipping around the world for Trace Labs that it was like, oh, my sock puppet. It's like, yeah, I can understand why I'm starting to get these alerts being like, oh, you were over here last week and now you're over here and now you're back over here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am.
Are you being kidnapped across countries? Let us
I am
know.
not. Yeah.
Let's face it, if anybody tried to traffic me, they'd probably send me back. I would be high maintenance.
You would be high maintenance. That's true. Yeah.
To that point, though, like I missed part of the discussion about the sock accounts, but here's what I'll just give you my 2 cents of it. As someone like I said, as we were starting, I don't know if it came through on the live broadcast or not. I'm pretty tinfoil hat. I'm not quite as tinfoil hat as Levi is in many cases. From that lens, with being somewhat tinfoil hat, I tend to measure a lot of risk with things. And for a Trace Labs event, realistically, you don't necessarily have to have a sock account. Generally speaking, it is a best practice, but keeping a sock account up to date and populated with stuff, I wouldn't worry so much about that because that's more on like the social engineering or human intelligence side. Be cautious of your privacy settings, and I'm specifically looking at LinkedIn with this because if you don't have LinkedIn configured properly, LinkedIn will show that you viewed someone's profile. So keep that in mind when you are dealing with those types of things. And like now, as part of what I call the gray hair theory, you pull one gray hair out and 5 more pop back in its place. We're seeing that with certain social media platforms, especially those that are claiming the anti-censorship, free speech, all of that stuff. They don't necessarily all have the same capability in terms of what they anonymize. And that could be in terms of like EXIF data. It's not terribly impossible to right click and view the source of a page and possibly find out stuff like that. So I know LinkedIn does it. I think MySpace did, but this is 2023, not 2008. The others I'm not so sure
Don't
about.
let Tom hear you say that. He's all of our best friends.
Honestly, everybody wanted to make fun of Tom. Comparing Tom to Mark Zuckerberg or Elon, I'll take Tom all day.
Mhm.
Every day.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
He was the friend we didn't know we needed at the time.
Yeah. I mean, Tom injected himself into our lives unnecessarily. At the same time,
Then he left.
he wasn't really trying to pilfer our data and sell it, and he wasn't charging us $150 a month for 500 API requests or for check marks or anything like that. So
No, he came into our lives and then he left us just as quickly.
yeah, honestly, MySpace is still around. I unfriended him, but then I sent him a friend request after a while because I forget what it was. If you are doing a Trace Labs event just because you're an enthusiast and you are doing this just for the OSINT for good perspective, you could use your personal accounts on most things. If you are doing this as an exercise to quote practice like you play, then that's when you're going to want your dedicated stuff, your Raspberry Pi, your cloud instance, or your VM. You want your sterile systems, you want your SOC accounts, all of that. If you are practicing like you play, none of us can tell you this is the right way or the wrong way. There are other OSINT style CTFs with similar purposes and missions, but not quite the same, that I would almost certainly say you need to open up your SOC drawer and use those accounts. Don't even touch your real account. Log out, delete all your cookies, everything. On the topic of logging, fingerprinting, and all that stuff, unless you're using like an isolated web browser like WebGap, at the end of the day, somebody's going to log your stuff either way. It doesn't matter. You could be using any VPN, whether it be Proton, Molvad, Nord, OpenVPN, any of that. Somebody somewhere is going to have logs about you. What you really have to focus on is how comfortable are you with that entity having logs about you, and understanding where that entity is located and who they have to share their information with in an obligatory manner. You know, if you're not up to borderline illegal activity or straight up illegal activity, your threat model is going to be a little bit different. But at the same time, depending on your role, if you're dealing with like foreign agents and stuff like that, then you may have an enhanced reason to break out the tinfoil and make some cool hats or fedoras or whatever you want. I'm so mad. I had a tinfoil dunce hat for today and my cat sat on it. No, I'm totally kidding there.
Oh no.
That's really what it boils down to. I don't like using the term of if you're not doing anything illegal, you don't have anything to worry about. Like, I don't like that term, but in this context, that's kind of appropriate in this context.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to show up in ISP logs or passive DNS or somebody's web server logs somewhere. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. The best thing you can do is understand and try to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't think any of us can escape tracking, even if we're using private browsers and things like that. But if this is, your first time competing specifically in a Trace Labs OSINT search party, then I would say using, you don't need to create a bunch of different accounts. You can create one sort of pseudo identity that you use, that's pseudo with a P, that you use to create like a LinkedIn account, a Facebook account, and an Instagram account, for example. And you can gain a lot of information from those different accounts, and you'll have a farther reach, breadth of information available to you having an account versus not having an account. And it's fairly simple to set those things up if you have a cell phone number that you can use to verify, especially the LinkedIn account. You will likely run into problems trying to use another service provider number, such as a Google Voice number or a voice over IP phone number to verify a LinkedIn account, especially now.
Same thing with VPNs as well. I will say that in my experience of creating SOC accounts, the easiest way to do it is to do it on a phone, whether that be your actual phone or a burner phone. I use social media on my phone. Some of them I will use the app because I have not experienced anything that would indicate otherwise. And quite frankly, it's not part of my threat model. The one I will never use on my phone is Facebook. And that's because I had Facebook installed on my phone. I was logged into another account on Gmail for something I was doing with work. Let's just leave that there. And it started suggesting friends from that other account. And I was like, nope, not today, Satan. And that's when I did away with it. And that was that. But that being said,
trusting than me.
You learn from your failures to kind of throw some jujitsu wisdom in this. What I'm kind of getting at is if I need to create a fake Facebook account, I'll install Facebook on my phone. I'll create the account. Can Facebook fingerprint me? Yeah, but you know what? Eventually they would be able to anyway. Create the account. Once I get signed into the account, sign into the account on whatever system I need to sign into it. and then delete the app off my phone again. Simple.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, like I see what Senor Mausers is saying in terms of preferring desktop with a public Wi-Fi network. That's a possibility, but here's the other thing, right? There's a certain assumption, right? With a desktop, there may not be much data for them to pilfer, and they really limited only to your cookies and your other browsing history. On a phone, they have such excessive permissions that they can read your email contacts, your phone contacts, and all these other things. They feel that if you're installing it on a mobile app, you're going to undergo so much less scrutiny because they assume, we know what they say about assuming, that they will be able to collect so much more data about you because they get that additional information. So like when I've tried to create fake accounts on a computer, I've got prompted to upload my driver's license picture. And I'm like, I'm sorry, this does not fall under the criteria of Patriot Act or Bank Secrecy Act or anything else with AML. You're not seeing my driver's license. I can't drive. And I just click out and I'm done with it. 5 minutes later, on a cellular network not connected to Wi-Fi on a phone, I was able to create an account with the same name, same email address, same everything, but not on a VPN because the providers, when they ask for a phone number, they know the VoIP number ranges. They know what belongs to Grasshopper. They know what belongs to Google. They know what belongs to insert company here. With VPNs, they know Proton's range. They know Molvad's range. They know all the ranges. You have to break some of your OPSEC walls to be able to pull it off. Senor Mausers is talking about photoshopped IDs. You could go through all that trouble, but honestly, for some things you need a phone anyway. Whether it's a burner or your actual phone, it's probably easier just to use a phone. And then that way, if you do something that does get your computer put into a mode for discovery, especially if you're on a Windows host, you don't get caught with photoshopped IDs on your computer, which is legally questionable. I'm not a lawyer, and I've not stayed in a Holiday Inn Express, but that's legally questionable.
Very questionable.
If a forensic investigator comes across that, there's a chance you're probably going to be answering some questions. And if you're on a Windows host, nothing is ever deleted. It's deleted from what you can see, but I will tell you from having taken a few Windows forensics courses, there's a reason I don't use Windows.
It's recoverable for sure. And going back to what you said earlier, it really also depends how in depth you want to go with this stuff based on, are you just playing to do the CTF or is this like training for something more than that, for work or something of that sort?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's kind of a low barrier to entry too. I just used a like decommissioned smartphone that I purchased on eBay that was like a store floor demo. You can pick up a cheap old smartphone pretty easily, unless you have one sitting in a drawer at home. And then you can requisition a SIM card for a prepaid or monthly service to get a number that is not associated with a carrier that is, labeled as a VoIP provider and not eligible to validate an account with, like a Google Voice number. Mint Mobile, MINT Mobile, is a good way to get a cheap SIM card. I think you can get like service that's ongoing for like $15 a month. And you just label that phone as your sock identity. Like that's the name of the phone is the name of your sock puppet. The number associated with the phone, I always put a label on the back of the phone with the person's alias, their name, the number, and the Gmail email account that I create for that fake human. And then I use that to spin up a Facebook, a LinkedIn, an Instagram, and whatever other account I need. And I'll just install the app straight to that phone and set those profiles up from the device itself. And then if I need something specific like a SurveyMonkey account associated with that ID, and this kind of goes more into like the phishing stuff, but you can use other services, and having an account with SurveyMonkey or another marketing type application to validate the existence of that alias account and make it look more like a real person, because they'll start to get marketing emails from that service into that Gmail box on a regular basis.
The other thing is you want to age your accounts too. Don't go creating a Proton or a Gmail account today and then 5 minutes later start trying to make your socks. Create them, let them sit and stew, put them on things like SurveyMonkey. I honestly, what I would do is I would recommend using the tool Alethe and look at all the detections Alethe has for particular email accounts. And then once you have all of like some of those detections, create accounts there so that it is detectable if someone uses a tool like Alethe. That's kind of a way you can go as well, because the age, actually, you know what? I'll do you one better. I will actually just give you a link to the GitHub repo, and it's also the back end of the EPOS tool that you can use. Like if you want to use the web version, I just put a link to the GitHub repo into chat, and now I'm putting the web-based version. Like if you're like me and a big fan of like what's my name, this is very similar for the what's my name perspective as well. Similar to the what's my name web app, EPOS is kind of the counterpart of that to Alethe.
Yeah, and that tool is fantastic for EPOS. You've done some demos with kind of pivoting through individuals as well. So I've had those as demos and workshops. For someone like my aged accounts, when you say, go slow and take your time, I actually had some like really old accounts, not necessarily of mine, but back in the day, I set up social media accounts for all three of my cats. A couple of them were flagged in the, hey, you have to upload like a photo proving you're a real person. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not using that one again. That requirement went away, so I'm now have full access to all of my cats' social media accounts. So sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, just give it some time, and the requirements change. So, and then additionally, I set them up to where now I think Facebook still has the thing to where it's like if it's uncertain if you're you, you have the option of having like 5 friends validate that it's you. Yeah, well, if I have 3 of them as cats, then that takes care of a bulk of them that can validate that it's me, and the other 2 are sock puppets. So start setting it up to where it's like facing that challenge. You then have, like, I have 5 accounts that can validate any sock puppet that I have. They can vouch. None of them are real though.
From that lens, actually, ChatGPT is all the rage. And, I did a webinar last month about using ChatGPT for personal OPSEC. This is actually a perfect use case scenario for using ChatGPT. In the absence of like doing the full on demonstration from that webinar, here are some things like with ChatGPT that we can go with on this. So like, for example, like this is the OSINT possum, if anyone was curious. I just tell it to create all kinds of weird stuff like a honey badger, a possum, and a mountain lion at a computer doing OSINT. So, just that one oddly looks like Larry Pichet from the Security Weekly ecosystem. I think this may actually be the password inspection agency. Alethe, do you agree with that? Maybe.
I'd say that's an alarmingly realistic representation.
Yeah.
I'm actually concerned.
As you should be. And like I've told, this is the Dolly app, so it's part of the OpenAI ecosystem. I also told it, like, Belouve, here's some pictures for your cats. It's pictures of cats doing OSINT.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take those and use them.
Absolutely. Just make sure you cut this little prism thing off at the bottom. This is one of my personal favorites. The bulldogs doing OSINT. But like during the webinar, I demonstrated like this right here. So like if you look here, this is Helen Johnson, sales professional. This looks like a picture that you would see on a LinkedIn connection request from a salesperson.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we don't want to gloss over like what Joe said earlier was important with the little prism down in the bottom corner. That was one of the things that was called out during your webinar. And I think that is also kind of important to bring additional focus on it. Like don't do the items that are going to get flagged. I've also seen with if you did this person does not exist. Oftentimes the eyes are too perfect, so that's going to be a giveaway. I think even here, if you look at the one, there's that's what I was referencing, is that you get the odd imperfections in the eyes as well, and the headset to nowhere on that one. Right. So
The headset to
Um,
nowhere I wouldn't use, but the eye imperfection, yes. So like I told Dolly to create pictures like this is Joe Gray OSINT. And I mean, if you look at them, all of them except for this one, actually that one too, they all have imperfection with their eyes. And when you think
Mhm.
about using AI to generate something, you think about AI generating it perfectly. And in this case, it's not. And the imperfection is perfection in itself.
yeah, and
Mhm.
again, you know, what do you what type of system do you think is checking these photos to see if they're fake? It's
A
likely
game
an AI
system.
system anyways. You know, so you're not
But
going to have an AI fool, and
They're
AI is going
trained
to
off of
go,
a generative adversarial network.
yeah,
So it's the same thing that's generating the images is detecting that they're fake.
but if you flip
Mhm.
it backwards, like if you flip the image backwards, you do some changes to the size. You might even go into XXD and drop some comments or something in there. There's all sorts of things you can do to make it less detectable. It wouldn't
Mhm.
surprise me if they weren't using something like the PimEyes API to do this as well. Um, but like also from that webinar, here's another terrifying thing you can do, right? Let's get one of those salespeople's names again. And believe you know exactly what's about to happen.
Those ones are actually really good.
Yeah, they're
Oh, I mean,
terrifying.
in a small like thumbnail, nobody's going to be able to identify those eye imperfections from a LinkedIn request.
The issue with this stuff, and mostly coming from a person who makes AI tools,
Mhm.
and does sock puppeting, is you have to remember enough of these details yourself if you are using this for a situation where you're engaging with someone, which is not trace labs.
Correct.
Mhm.
If you're doing this for social engineering, it makes it a lot easier to put together because in the past for social engineering, I used fake name generator.
Mhm.
That's what I used, and I just used the entire backstory that came with it. And
Yeah, those are
really
fun.
it just focused on this. And like what I would do is I would like just print this off and put it behind my computer screen on the wall so that I could rapidly pull stuff up. But
Mhm.
in this regard, like this stuff, okay, cool. But this stuff right here is a lot more in depth. You've got to take the time to study it.
Mhm.
But still, I mean, this right here, I mean, check this out. I'm going to be transparent with you all. I was transparent during the webinar, but um,
Is this how you're generating all your the OSINTion social media posts, Joe?
not all of them, just the ones that
Some
have
of them.
That's like 93% of them, at least.
Just
Don't
like
call them out.
93.9%.
no, it's only the ones that have hashtag chat GPT at the end of them.
Okay, so you're at least labeling them like they label ads on Instagram. I
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
see.
But I mean, and honestly, I don't just like with something like this, I'm not just gonna say, oh well, yeah, this stuff's cool.
Copy paste. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm
you're
actually gonna
editing it.
proofread it
Mhm.
and like with some things, it's like, I don't like the way this reads. I'm gonna change it a little bit. But what I will say is stuff like this is more aesthetically pleasing to the algorithms. So if you are trying to create a sock puppet that's more of a quote influencer, you definitely want to use Chat GPT for it because I've done A/B testing. I've said pretty much the same exact thing in a Chat GPT post and one that I
Mhm.
wrote from scratch. And the Chat GPT post had like 20 times the interaction that the other one did. So, I mean, if you're going to create socks, this is probably not a bad way to go. Because you can do all sorts of stuff on this. Like, going back to Karen Smith, sales professional. I mean, you can literally take this resume, make a few changes, like ABC University, and like ABC and XYZ company. You can say, something to the effect of
Oh yeah, and then just plop that in as recent experience places.
Yeah, doing very generic and bland positions and companies also works out very well. I think
Mhm.
one of the favorite ones that I use is system operator, because just sort of like, well, what is that? And if someone challenges you in the IT department, you go, oh no, it's a systems operator, that I just run a printing press. And if you go, oh no, the low tech are like, oh, well, what is this? I don't know. Are you one of the printing press guys? I'm like, no, I'm a system operator. I do stuff with the network. You can just kind of keep floating
Bouncing
around,
back and
because you're
forth.
sort of like,
Yeah.
what, you're not pinned down to having to be a subject matter expert in one thing or another. You can have it
Yeah.
be very, very vanilla, and you blend in, like, again, like,
Yeah, same thing. And I mean, with government contractors, my first government contracting position, my title was a systems engineer.
yeah, what is,
Um,
yeah,
My
And-
current
and I
title
was-
means nothing, so.
yeah, I mean, it's government lingo for you're a contractor. That's all it is.
Mhm.
So if you use that, like if you use some of the stuff with that, you're totally good to go. If you are interested in on-demand training, check out the OSINTion Academy. We currently have 3 courses available. You can bundle all 3 of those courses or 2 of those courses. We have replays of webinars as well as a lot of free content. Visit academy.theoscension.com. If you're interested in purchasing courses from the OSINTion, you can do so in a variety of ways. The easiest way is the OSINTion store, which is at theoscension.com/courses/store. You can purchase bundles, individual courses, and placeholders here. If you would like a custom bundle, please email bundles@theoscension.com for custom bundles or questions. If you're interested in any of the upcoming live courses, we are teaching on March 4th from noon until 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Practical OPSEC for Intelligence and Privacy. We will be teaching Intelligence Investigations Business on April 1st from noon until 8:30 p.m. On May 6th, we'll be teaching from noon until 4 p.m. the Image Intelligence, Optical Character Recognition, and Video Analysis course. And also on May 6th, we'll be teaching regular expressions for intelligence from 5 to 9 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to bundle these courses, we offer this in a payment plan and as a one-time payment. There are the links to take care of that. You can follow us on Twitch. osint.mobi/Twitch is the redirect. osint.mobi/YouTube is the YouTube redirect. And also we maintain a couple of communities. On Discord, we maintain the OSINTion Discord, which is osint.mobi/Discord. And we are also members of OSINTelligence on LinkedIn, which you can join via osint.mobi/OSINTelligence. There are the links to my social media as well as the OSINTions. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.